My name is Mike Gross, and I'm the Vice President of Product Strategy for HighJump. Today's topic we'll be reviewing is managing omnichannel fulfillment requirements, and I hope that today's showcase is educational for you. There's been a lot of buzz in the industry regarding the omnichannel topic, and for good reasons. Omnichannel has been a major disruptor for traditional retail models and the extended supply chain network that's ultimately responsible for getting products out to the end consumer. So today we're going to focus on the unique requirements and the challenges that are placed upon the retail supplier community that is ultimately tasked with getting multiple products out to market through those different distribution models. Okay, so let me cover off our agenda real quick. So first we're just going to start off and cover more of just a practical definition of what omnichannel is. We've heard a lot of it in the industry. It's been a big buzzword, but let's just talk it through. What does it really mean? Then we're going to talk about how that's really transformed the whole retail community. And then we're going to talk about some of the most impactful challenges and pressures that's placed upon the supplier community. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about really what we hear when we talk to companies that are ultimately retail suppliers. Then we're going to spend some time decomposing the complete order-to-cash lifecycle. So what are all the steps involved? What are some of the key choke points? Chris Barnes is a member of our panel today. Chris is a warehouse operations and a distribution expert that's part of our team. Chris is going to spend some time just talking about some of his observations from working with lots of GP users, learning about their businesses, and sharing some of the best practices that we ultimately help organizations with. And he's going to really walk us through how a GP user manages both dropship and standard replenishment distribution models using the Accellos platform for Dynamics GP. And then lastly, we have a special guest that's going to be joining us from our customer community. Blue Rhino, they're a division of Ferrellgas. And if you're like me, you like to barbecue, Blue Rhino has a great brand of products that ultimately are centered around barbecue. So take and exchange propane tanks, grills, fire pits, grilling accessories, and so on and so forth. Tamaria Zertucci is the Director of IT for Blue Rhino, and she's going to spend some time just talking about the experience that they had related to omnichannel fulfillment, how they sort of struggled with those requirements, and how they went about selecting and implementing a platform solution that helped them scale very effectively in their fulfillment operations. Okay, so let's get to it. So I would imagine that most of you have heard the term omnichannel. And I thought it would make sense just to start off with just a short practical definition of what it really means. So to boil it all down, omnichannel, it's really a go-to-market approach for retailers of getting their products to consumers across all of the different available demand points, whether it's a consumer visiting a brick-and-mortar store location, a consumer shopping online, being influenced through a social media application, shopping on their mobile device, their tablet, through a kiosk, or maybe even a catalog. It's really providing a consistent experience for that consumer across each of those potential options in terms of buying products. And ultimately, it's about balancing inventory at each point in the distribution network to service demand at a really high velocity and extending return processes to consumers and so on and so forth, all the different ways that the buying experience has evolved over the years. And at the end of the day, omnichannel, it's really been driven by us as consumers. We have ubiquitous internet, high-speed internet access on our mobile devices. No matter where we're at in the world, largely we can get on our device and we can research products, we can shop for products. And that's really given us what is commonly referred to as the endless aisle experience to make our purchases, to do research, and so on and so forth. So it's really forced the traditional retailer to rethink their entire model and ultimately the supply chain network around them that supports getting product to the end consumer. Okay, so now that we have defined omnichannel, and for some full perspective, I'm going to spend just a few minutes discussing how technology and our evolving shopping habits has significantly reshaped the entire retail landscape. First and foremost, the retail marketplace, it's much more competitive now. We've seen a number of large retailers go bankrupt. We've seen a number of large retailers merge just so they can be competitive today in the existing environment. The emerging retailers, as we know, they don't have to deal with all the overhead of a brick-and-mortar stores, and they can get their product to market, much more cost-effectively. So the brick-and-mortar retailers that have the store networks have to really rethink how they can balance inventory across all the different ways that we as consumers like to purchase products. So the market's got much more competitive. There's a lot of pressure to build loyalty when consumers can shop based on price, trying to provide a consistent buying experience and capture demand no matter where a consumer's at in their shopping process, operating on razor-thin margins, battling the showroom effect, dealing with shorter and shorter product life cycles, and so on and so forth. Retailers also have a lot of new pressures on their supply chain, and that's really where the supplier community comes in. But trying to fill demand across multiple demand points is extremely challenging. Is it in-store purchase? Is it in-store pickup? Is it drop shipped to the consumer's home? Delivering on continuously shrinking delivery windows. It's always about trying to find ways to get the product out to consumers faster. And of course, we want it faster, but there's also pressure for sustainable practices and reducing our carbon footprint. Free shipping, free returns. I mean, that places incredible pressure on the supply chain to have to deal with that and do it profitably. And then lastly, I mean, all those things result in bringing down the cost within our supply chain. So let's turn our focus to the supplier community. What has Omnichannel done? How has it impacted the supplier community? I mean, first and foremost, the emergence of e-commerce, it's created new channels for us to get our product to market. If you have a product that's in demand, then there's new channels to go out and sell. The internet retailers, they're outpacing the traditional retailers. So if you can understand how to manage those unique distribution requirements and do it cost effectively and scale, then it's ultimately very positive for your organization. And at the end of the day, you know, for retailers to deliver that endless aisle experience, they really have to extend their distribution capability directly into their suppliers' operations. There's a lot of pressure that's placed on the supplier community in terms of additional data that has to be shared, additional compliance requirements, which we'll talk about in just a moment. In the case of drop shipping, retailers, I mean, they're physically separated from your inventory, so they're demanding a lot more visibility to your inventory availability. They're demanding, in some cases, up to hourly updates, which is incredibly difficult to manage that process. So ultimately, there's a lot of new, more complex business processes that are required outside of the traditional replenishment order models to deal with drop shipping. Things like, again, sharing item attribute data, images, ingredients, and things like that. All sorts of item attribute data has to be shared as new items get posted on e-stores. Balancing your inventory across different distribution models, so making sure that there's enough inventory reserved for flash sales, for replenishment orders, and so on and so forth. A lot of new compliance requirements, so GS1 labeling, branded pack slip reports, and a lot more complex routing processes as well. And then in terms of fulfilling an order, when it comes to dealing with a standard replenishment order, you're not having to deal with, you know, picking at a unit level. You're not having to ship orders out that come in today out by 5. There's a lot of variability in terms of the swings in order volume, especially around peak seasons like a Cyber Monday, handling the consumer returns process, and then ultimately dealing with drop shipping, a lot more parcel shipping. Are we set up in our operations to handle that is a common thing that we hear in the community. Okay, so we spend a lot of time speaking with GP users about their operations and really learning about some of the challenges that they're experiencing and really the direction of their business. So what we commonly find is GP users are generally small and mid-sized organizations, and these organizations face the same exact fulfillment challenges that larger enterprise-type operations have to deal with as well. So those pressures of managing multiple distribution models efficiently, managing retail compliance, ultimately running their operations as efficiently as they can so they can remain competitive. And those are all things that are relevant to a GP user as well. So I've highlighted a few of the most common themes across the industry that our team, understands in talking with different organizations. So first, from a resource perspective, dealing with lots of different distribution models and requirements for the different customers, the different channels that we're supporting, training our resources on each of those unique customer requirements. Which customer requires a GS1 label? Which customer requires a custom pack slip report? Which customer requires a special routing process? Just getting that internal knowledge baked into a standard operating procedure can be incredibly challenging, especially when you're dealing with seasonal labor and so on and so forth. Challenges matching labor to demand for resources, incredibly difficult, and a lot of waste there in terms of cost and staffing up additional labor out of anticipation or not having enough resources to to push inventory out as order volumes peak. From a process perspective, just the way that some of these newer requirements are laid out, there's a lot of different systems that you have to interact with. So that means there's a lot of process interrupts to support those customer requirements. It's not a seamless process that's baked in or woven into the fulfillment workflow. Necessity to create unique teams around different distribution models. Again, waste from not having sort of a uniform process and view of a customer and a consistent way of managing their requirements. Inability to connect different systems, which we'll talk about more. Chris Barnes will certainly highlight some very good examples here of what he's seen in the industry. A lot of manual and paper-based processes. As you grow your business, as you get into new channels, being held back by manual paper-based processes can be extremely inefficient and difficult to scale. And then compliance, just a lot of evolving and continuously more complex compliance requirements. We touched on some of these: GS1 labeling, sending inventory on hand data, sharing item attribute data, retailer branded pack slip with gift notes, and on and on and on. How do you manage all this data? How do you bake it into your workflow to where it can be managed consistently without having to build unique processes for each unique customer? From a financial perspective, dealing with the chargebacks of not fully understanding compliance, not being able to support it at scale. Margin pressure on dropship orders. If you're shipping at a unit level, there's a lot more labor involved in getting that order fulfilled in your operation. So being able to do that cost effectively and ultimately driving profitability. Scalability and throughput, just dealing with the spikes in order volume, the need for workflow automation to help drive down cost. Okay, so we thought we'd spend just a few minutes just kind of talking through all of the discrete steps that are involved to manage the complete fulfillment workflow. And we're really going to focus on really just kind of highlighting a dropship scenario as well as a standard replenishment scenario. So if you're selling into a traditional retailer, most likely they're going to require EDI. If you're selling into some of the larger retail businesses, they're likely going to require EDI in some form. Whether it's an integrated EDI or you're going out to their portal, ultimately you're getting data that's the orders are originating in some form of electronic version, which you also need to integrate into your business system. So once the order originates inside of your ERP, inside of GP, then there's a process of order management reviewing to make sure that the order is correct, the right pricing, the right terms, and so on and so forth. Allocating inventory against that order, sending back an order confirmation. Most organizations require that to know that you're going to be able to fulfill the demands of that order. Sending out your materials handlers to go and pick that inventory, pack it up into shippable containers, determining the cube for an order, doing routing. Generally, it's on a separate system, the retailer system, to confirm how they want you to ship it. Printing off the UCC labels, printing off the pack slip reports, collecting the ASN data, entering that into your EDI solution, shipping the product, so picking the carrier, printing the carrier's label if it's going parcel, applying the labels to the boxes. If the return label is required, making sure that's printed and included inside the box. And then lastly, doing the ASNs and the invoice transactions and sort of complete the loop, the payment coming back from the retailer. And generally those are done in separate systems that oftentimes require some manual entry into your Dynamics GP system. Okay, so a little bit more about HighJump. So HighJump is part of the Accellos family. Accellos and HighJump merged together in 2014, and it's an end-to-end supply chain platform. And we'll start with, on the left side of this visual here, part of HighJump's focus is on network connectivity, so connecting retailers with their suppliers and other supply chain partners, so managing the compliance requirements for various documents and providing direct integration, deep-level integration inside of Dynamics GP to weave those document integrations into the GP native workflows. As orders are loaded into Dynamics GP, managing the manufacturing processes if you are a manufacturer, managing the movement of inventory inside the four walls of your warehouse as you're distributing the product and so on and so forth, and also managing the interactions with carriers, whether it's LTL carriers or parcel carriers, to directly integrate into their systems and eliminate having to manually interface with carriers. And then if you're a retailer or a furniture store, part of the HighJump platform designed around the retail organization as well for managing promotions and managing inventory within your store locations. So ultimately about the HighJump platform is that it's designed to work together as a seamless platform, but can be implemented in building block components so that if you only have EDI requirements today, but your business is growing and expanding in complexity, you can add on other components such as inventory management, warehouse management, et cetera. So a little bit more about the HighJump organization. So we've been focused in the Dynamics GP market for well over 20 years. Over 1,000 different organizations leverage components from our platform to help power their supply chain operations. Really built around depth of the integration to really tightly integrate the different business transactions, whether it's EDI or warehouse transactions, to keep inventory in sync with Dynamics GP, and really designed around the end-to-end supply chain fulfillment workflow. So whether it's EDI or warehouse management, transportation, it's all designed around the Dynamics GP as sort of the centerpiece of your operations. Our solutions are certified for Microsoft Dynamics GP. We're a Microsoft certified partner and participate in a lot of the Microsoft development alliances, if you will, to stay current with what's going on in Dynamics GP and how that product is evolving. Okay, so we're going to take a moment here just to kind of walk through. Chris Barnes is actually going to step through kind of the day in the life of the fulfillment workflow for a dropship distribution model as well as a standard replenishment distribution model. And he's really going to focus on two different organizations, Amazon for the dropship scenario and Target for a standard replenishment scenario. So he's going to actually start with a set of orders coming in from those two different retail organizations and being imported into Dynamics GP. So he's going to walk through that process, including the step where we send back the confirmation, which is a required compliance requirement. He's going to walk us through how those orders are seamlessly downloaded into the WMS, so our operations folks have immediate visibility to those transactions and can start to plan labor around the transactions as they're flowing through the system. He's going to walk through the different picking and packing methods and talk about some of the ways that you can optimize your workflows within your warehouse to minimize the amount of travel and so on and so forth to get orders out at the highest velocity you possibly can. And then we're going to touch on the fulfillment process back to GP, so how that's automated, how it updates the system automatically, how it creates ASNs automatically based on how the orders were picked, packed, and shipped, and then close out with releasing ASNs and invoices and the remittance device coming back as part of the final step in the order-to-cash loop. So with that, I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'm going to transition over to Mr. Chris Barnes.
Thanks, Mike. For the demonstration, we will start inside Microsoft GP and go into the workflow for sales order processing. Because we are fully embedded and integrated with GP, much of the work we show is typically done as an automated background process. But I'm going to show how inbound and outbound documents coming in and out of GP are managed. Let's click the Sales Order Import button to begin the order transfers. Once the orders are imported, we can view audit and exceptions reports. Here, we can see the transaction details for a specific order and then look at the audit report. For the demonstration, we have imported 4 orders. 2 for Amazon we will process as drop shipments, and 2 for Target that will represent direct-to-store or fulfillment-type shipments. We can also view the exceptions report to see if any corrective action should be taken. In this report, we have duplicate PO numbers and some price mismatches. Note, these reports can be sent to individuals or a distribution list depending on your needs. We also store errors and warnings in the notes field for the lifetime the document is in GP. And we can also capture relative dates associated to the orders. Next in the process, the 855 PO acknowledgement is sent, which shows your ability to satisfy the order line detail. You can select all POs or one by one as needed. At this point, we have 4 orders entered into GP and downloaded to WMS. Next, we will go into AccellosOne WMS to pick, pack, and ship the orders. Here, I am logged into AccellosOne WMS as a warehouse manager and have the system configured to show relevant key performance indicators to help me get an idea how the warehouse is performing. AccellosOne WMS comes with over 90 pre-configured KPIs, or you can develop your own as needed. To begin setting up orders in the warehouse, I now navigate to the Order Work Center. This is where much of the planning work will be done. Many warehouse managers utilize this view. AccellosOne Order Work Center is responsible for orchestrating the order management activities. This is used to prioritize stock allocation and the assignment of work in the warehouse. Think of it as an electronic board of the orders within the warehouse. In this work center, you can sort orders, view specific data elements, group orders, and monitor order status. From this view of all the orders in the warehouse, we can filter to see only today's orders. In the Today's Orders filter, we have 6 orders, the 4 that were recently downloaded from GP and 2 others, 1 being picked and 1 waiting for shipment confirmation. What we will do next is select the 2 Amazon orders for picking and release them to the floor. We call this process waiving orders. Waiving is a best practice that helps balance workflow in the warehouse. From a process perspective, we will preprint a UPS shipping label for each order, get a shipping carton for each order, apply the shipping labels to the cartons, and take both cartons on the same pick tour. Using this approach, you can pick multiple orders at the same time on one pass through the warehouse, which significantly reduces the average travel time per order. You can pick as many orders as you can reasonably manage. Once the orders are picked, they are moved to a partial staging area and automatically system shipped. This significantly reduces pack station labor and space requirements. Next, let's manually waive the orders. Again, this is the process of releasing the orders to the warehouse for picking. Here, you can also define the different label types to print as a part of the workflow. Once the orders are released, you can view the Order Work Center and see the line level detail and the associated labels. In this example, we have a 1Z label already assigned. Highlighting the next order, you see the 1Z and the carton labels for this order. Next, let's use a handheld device to process the pick workflow. This is the image of the handheld scanner screen. We log in using an ID and a password. Go into the picking option and see the different picking workflows. For this demonstration, we will select regular picking. And within regular picking, you can even pick by specific work zones depending on how your warehouse is laid out. And then start the pick workflow. Notice we can also select a group of orders by selecting the wave number 1152. These are the 2 orders selected and released earlier. When system picking, the system will route us through the warehouse in the most efficient pick path. To begin picking, go to the location identified on the scanner and scan the product ID. Next, we scan the system-directed carton we are putting the inventory into. Notice the carton is related to one of the orders in the Order Work Center, and we can scan either the carton label or the 1Z number. Back to the pick workflow and the scanner screen. We then confirm the quantity you are picking, and because we are picking multiple orders at the same time, the next pick line will be for the same item, but in another carton. Note the different carton ID. If we scan the wrong ID, the system gives us an error message and does not allow us to make a picking mistake. Back to the Order Work Center, you can have real-time visibility into the order status. In this example, we see the order is being picked. Back to the handheld, we complete the order. Scan the product, scan the carton, confirm the quantity. Then scan the other carton of the other order and validate the quantity. Navigating back to the Order Work Center, we see the picked orders no longer appear in the Open Orders view. They have been system shipped and uploaded to GP. Now let's review another pick workflow for replenishment type orders. In this workflow, we are going to process orders shipping to a retailer. Many retailers, for example Target, might require you to have 1 label per case on the order. So you will need a UCC or GS1 label for each case and potentially associate those case labels to a pallet label, so you essentially create a pallet and carton level ASN. In this case, I have already gone through the pick and pack process we outlined earlier. In the warehouse, as you are picking and packing the orders, we can view the GS1 label in the line item detail view and see they have been assigned to 1 pallet ASN. This essentially creates both carton level detail and pallet level ASN data that will be sent via EDI to Target with all the required information based on how the order was picked and packed in the warehouse. We will manually ship the target order to see the data sent up to GP. Keep in mind this is typically all done as an automated background process. Depending on the customer you are picking for, we can automatically print out the customer branded pack slip. This is especially helpful if you are doing drop shipments for your retail partners. In this case, we see the Amazon branded pack slip related to this order. This completes the pick, pack, and ship workflow in AccellosOne WMS. Next, we look back in GP to see the EDI data input. Back in GP, we go into the ASN Manager and show and export an ASN created by the WMS. This is typically done as a background process that can be set to run on an automated schedule. But to give you a view of what the pack structure will look like, let's pull up an example. You can see here this is what the order looks like from a carton standpoint and the correlated UCC number. The different UCC numbers will actually correspond to the label on the shipment. Again, all of this is done during the pick workflow in the warehouse, so there is no rekeying of data requirements. This will save administrative labor and significantly reduce associated data entry errors. We can also view the order itself and view the tracking numbers and update the sales transactions corresponded to GP. The last thing to do is export the invoice after the order has been picked and packed and shipped and the ASN is sent. Here we send the invoice. This can be a manual step where you can see all invoices that have not been sent and you can select which invoices to send, all, one by one, or by customer. Again, this is typically done as a background process, but you can configure the release based on your business rules and expectations. Next, we have a customer testimonial by Blue Rhino.
Thank you, Chris. My name is Tamria Zartucci, and I'm the Director of IT Applications for Blue Rhino. I'm joined today by Judy Smith, our EDI Business Manager. You might have heard of Blue Rhino. We're the #1 provider of propane tank exchange in the country. We're also a leading designer of barbecue grills, outdoor heaters, mosquito trap devices, and really other outdoor patio appliances. We're also a member of Feral Gas, which is a leader in propane across the country. I'm here to talk about Blue Rhino and Accellos and how we've used the Accellos tools to help us in EDI and in our warehouses. First, I would like to talk about our EDI system. We acquired a new business in that propane grill patio heater outdoor venue, and that new business was running Microsoft Great Plains for their ERP. We were a nav shop to begin with, so this was a new venture for us, and we needed to replace the legacy EDI system that this new company we acquired was using. We own IBM's B2B Sterling EDI platform, so it narrowed our scope of the number of products that we could use in order to integrate our IBM tool with GP. That was our business need. The selection process actually went fairly smoothly. We attended a Convergence conference, and it was great. There was a plethora of solutions and providers to choose from, and we found by doing a real boots on the ground at the Convergence of asking people, hey, if you have IBM, if you are using GP, what's the provider that we should be looking at? And most people named Accellos, the vSync tool that was used to integrate IBM to GP. So there was another concept that they brought to us, and they meaning Accellos, and that is they had Gentran maps, which was an older version of IBM, that they thought we could easily convert to the current version, and that would save us a lot of time. And in fact, they were one of the only companies to get on board and say, let's do a proof of concept. You know, we're saying that this is all going to work, that it will be smooth, that it will make things easy for your lean shop. And they did a proof of concept with us, and it was a success. In fact, they won what we like to call the bake-off, when we had a couple other providers come in and they fell flat. So we have been using the Accellos EDI tool for almost a year now, and I'd like to share with you some of the wins and the lessons learned. We started off onboarding last year 24 customers, and we did basically a little bit of a Q&A with our users, and it quickly ballooned to that fact that there was actually 32 customers and over 100 documents, and their EDI vendor license or contract agreement was going to end in 60 days. So we came back to Accellos and said, hey, we have to onboard 32 customers, 100 documents in 60 days. Can you help us? And in fact, they did. They did an awesome job. We'll talk a little bit about the implementation team. They were extremely knowledgeable, and they helped us do that great feat. We now have 68 customers. So if you think about how many customers we're able to onboard per month, it's really a tribute to the tool. It cut our onboard time in half. Our staff is extremely lean, so having a tool that shortens the lead time for bringing a customer on board, especially when the customer may require EDI in order to do business, it helps our sales team and helps all the other pieces of our supply chain. Some back-end wins. This Accellos help desk is extremely knowledgeable. There was a couple problems that we had because of some specific third-party add-ons, which is very prevalent in the GP world. And our Accellos team on the help desk really able to address those problems, and they did it very quickly. Our internal customers, which is our own internal sales team, when they're working with the external customers, they really require a dynamic. There's a lot of specific EDI requirements that are outside of what a customer may have posted. Things like dynamic changes to orders, just being a more responsive EDI shop, and the Accellos EDI tool really allows us to do that. With all of the great items or wins that we've had with the EDI tool, we then, in acquiring the business, acquired multiple warehouses. And so moving to the next slide, which is our WMS solution, we needed to consolidate multiple warehouses. They were using a paper process to put away, to pick, pack, and ship, and obviously needed an automated solution. Again, we found ourselves at Convergence. We used the same boots-on-the-ground approach, asking our peers that had platforms, environments like ours, staffed like ours, what's the tool to use? And most of them suggested Accellos. Of course, we had a great implementation with EDI, so that really helped place Accellos in a position with us where they'd already proved that they could do what they said they were going to do. And in reviewing everything that the pre-sales team presented, they came on site, they did a visit, they looked at our processes, which were extremely manual, and all of the things that we wanted to do, the goals for our company. And they provided a system that was just more configurable than the competition. And that configuration is really what led us to choose their product. If you ask our warehouse manager if he could have delivered the past season, and our season runs November to January, so we're just getting out of it, if he could have delivered the season, he would say he could not have without the Accellos software. We were able to experience higher productivity, and I mean that in the way of being measurable productivity. We shipped more, flat out. That's the measure, and we hit it. Also, our sales team had much better inventory visibility, which, while that might not be a great feat because we were on a paper solution, if you think about the standpoint of how inventory visibility really makes the supply chain that much more efficient from beginning to end, it was a huge win for us. Receipt and put away process obviously also was a part of increasing inventory visibility, and that piece has really been flawless for us. Another piece that's flawless is all of the devices that are spread out over a very large warehouse facility has been flawless. Our pickers, our put away, they have absolutely no issues with the mobile devices. Those are all of our wins, and I could go on and on, but I have a limited amount of time. Let's talk about some lessons learned, and these are always just good to share among colleagues, and that we had some specific pain points that were really specific to our business, and the fact that we were moving from paper to an automated system, and we didn't do a very good job of communicating some of those things. and therefore the implementation team that was matched with us didn't necessarily meet our specific pain points. So we have learned that we need to do a better job of communicating that, so that Accellos, they have many different implementation teams with different strengths. We should have, if we had communicated that, we would have gotten an implementation team that could have helped us with the fact that shipping was actually a big problem for us, and we didn't really realize that with our own self-reflection and our BPR process. So we have shipping issues today that we kind of brought on ourselves. So we've really learned how to communicate our needs better. Also, the next steps for us that we've presented to Accellos, and I'm sure they'll step up to the challenge, is that some of our external customers are just not as tech savvy as we are. And while we have become automated and we are very EDI based, they still want us to deal with them on the phone or with email. And how does that integrate back into an automated system? So Accellos is helping us meet that challenge. All in all, the Blue Rhino Products Division has greatly increased inventory, visibility, productivity of our employees, both within our EDI team and in our warehouses. And ultimately, our supply chain has decreased overall lead time, and we've increased customer service by using both of these products. Well, thanks for listening to me, and I wish everyone the best of luck.